Hello everyone. Hope you all had a really good weekend since the last time I streamed. Thank you to the many of you I've been talking to over the past few days, really since the last stream, who have just really shared positive feedback, shared about yourselves, shared about things that you're working on, or really just anything. It's been fun getting to talk to more of you, some that I knew a bit, but maybe not as much until I started doing this, some that I didn't know. And also, even on the last stream, the interaction I got from Fort Flap and the stream before that, everyone who's interacted, it's been a really neat experience on my end, and so I have all of you to thank for that. So today I've got a list of things I've been thinking about that have come up over the past however many days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, so 4 days. Some that have come up from what people suggested, some things that have come up just in the course of conversations, and some things just from being observant and watching. And so we'll see how it goes, but I do want to encourage everyone, like, if you have questions, whether they're really big things, like I kind of tackled on the last stream, or even small things like I struggle with, like, this one thing. Like, it's not a huge life thing, it's just like this one little thing is kind of annoying. Even though I do emphasize that I think if you're, like, really struggling, it's likely to be because there's some big issue that needs to be resolved. It's not like a life hack is going to work if like your whole life is struggling. It's not like this one life hack is going to fix everything for you. Like, use a calendar. Like, that's probably not going to solve it. That's probably not what the root issue is. But there are little things as we go day to day, and while I could focus on some of those bigger topics, so much of my journey back then and even now, partially because of who I am, just because I'm kind of interested in self-development, productivity, life hacker type things, I've picked up a lot along the way there, and that's a big part of what I'm bringing in to what I'm doing here and also in one-on-one coaching as well. So there's definitely a macro of the bigger things, but there's also daily habits, consistencies, things like that, that really do move the needle forward, and especially can help you just get by, day to day. Really, my own journey was, trying to figure out, prior to knowing that I really had to go do the deep stuff, it was like, maybe I'm just thinking about this wrong. Maybe I'm not using this tool, this software, this trick, this habit, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. I was kind of focused more on the micro at first, and I'm planning on talking about some of that kind of stuff, but if you guys want to ask questions about it, feel free to. But the more questions I get from the chat as things come up, it could be what I'm discussing, or it could just be, hey, I really want to know about this, can you address it? And I might wait till I'm done talking about whatever I'm talking about to answer, so that I don't stop in midstream. But that's gonna help me, because like doing 2 hours a day of monologues is it's a lot of talking and a lot of content to come up with. And while I can, and I do have a lot of ideas and things I want to discuss, this is not a 2-week thing for me. This is a many months and possibly years thing for me, if all goes well. So that's going to require interacting and kind of coming up with stuff on the fly in response to the questions you guys ask me. So first off, you might notice that there's some music playing, and I really spent a number of hours over the weekend trying to fix this stream up. Hopefully the quality of the stream is a little better visually. Hopefully my voice is, well, it's still my voice, but hat tip to Lathander for suggesting some software to use that hopefully maybe reduces some of the background noise. Like if you hear like the air conditioning noise, like that kind of ambient fuzzy white noise type stuff, hopefully I've reduced that a little bit. There's some music, not my favorite, looking for something a little bit more like chill down tempo. This is more lo-fi, but I thought that might be nice. If it's too distracting or it's causing problems, just let me know and we'll see about changing it or removing it. But I'm going to give it a shot today and see if that adds some nice ambience or ambiance to the stream. So let's dive in. A few people have asked me about different questions that kind of all go around this topic. Some have asked if I will cover things that are like mental health or really mental illness type things. Others have kind of been confused on like what coaching is and what I exactly do. And similarly what coaching is not. And although I have addressed this at the top of the first stream, it's also in like on the about of the Twitch page, that and in various Discords I've said the same thing. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a doctor. The coaching is a wholly different thing that takes a different approach, and it can handle different things. Now, I'm not saying that a therapist might not be able to handle some things that a coach might handle, and in fact, I know a lot of therapists are bringing coaching techniques and modalities into therapy because they're effective. However, on the flip side, there are things that are addressed in therapy that I simply cannot handle. It would be, first off, illegal for me to do so, and second off, just simply unethical. And third, it's not something that I'm really looking to do. Like, I can't manage ADHD. It's not really my goal. It's not something I'm personally interested in. And, some people have asked me, like, well, would you talk about, like, bipolar or schizophrenia, just from, like, an informational standpoint And that's really not within my realm of competency. And again, although it's not necessarily illegal for me to discuss these things like in a general sense, I do kind of feel like it would be unethical to even go down that path on this Twitch stream, and I just really don't want to get into it. I'm not nearly trained well enough, even if I have an understanding of what these things are, to say I've done the requisite study to really explain it fully, explain what it's all about, what's happening, what the treatments are. Anything like that, even remotely like that, is just not something I'm going to do. If you're struggling with any of those things, again, I want to reiterate, please don't take anything that I'm saying on this stream as medical advice. Please seek out the help of a qualified professional if you're dealing with especially stuff like that, where it's like, if you're schizophrenic, you should definitely be seeing a therapist, There is a bit of overlap, right, though, because you might just be feeling down about things in your life and they might be depressing you. And what a coach can do is say, okay, well, you want this, right? But you don't have this over here, and so therefore you're not thrilled or you're not happy, right? So, but if you could get there, if you could achieve that goal, then that would remove the upsetness, or the, again, depression is a technical term. So, you might not be like clinically depressed. You might be, and that might be part of it, but there's still a line there where a therapist is going to maybe address the depression head on. Again, if they are a psychiatrist or they're working in tandem with one, they might be just prescribing pills and things like that. And while I have kind of made some of my thoughts known about that, again, don't listen to me for medical advice. You should be talking to them. But a coach can help you to achieve the goal that you're looking for. What that looks like in actuality is, let's say you are just looking for less stress, a little bit more meaning in your life and things like that, and you might want to achieve this goal. It's like, well, what would bring you more happiness or more meaning? Well, if I could do X, then I think I'd feel happier about this. Okay, well, what's preventing you from reaching X? Well, I have fears around it. Okay, where do those fears stem from? Well, they stem from not feeling like I am good enough or this or that, right? Okay, well, what can we do to uncover those stories and beliefs, again, often born from trauma or grief, which is really the birthplace of shame and fears and all those kinds of things. What can we do to kind of like shine a light on that and examine it, come to a different understanding of it, process it in a different way, think about it in a different way, hopefully heal it a bit, so that those things, those ways that you're tripping yourself up, limiting beliefs, intrusive thoughts, things like that, are out of the way, so that you can then be freed up to go after your goal. And not just go after, because you could do it with those fears anyway, right? There's a great book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, by Susan Jeffers, I believe. And really, just honestly, you could probably get a lot out of that book from just like the first 2-3 chapters, I think. When I read it, I mean, like, she just kind of outlined it very well in the beginning, and I would recommend that book. But it's not that you like can't go after these things. It's just working with a coach is going to just help you get there way easier, because as things come up, there's methodologies, there's techniques, all these kinds of things. There's just simply the accountability of it, that we can figure out what the blocks are, where you're tripping up, all these other kinds of things, and just get you there a lot faster to what you want. And again, the two aspects of that I'm really focusing on are trauma and going back and looking and uncovering stories and seeing, okay, how can we think about this differently? How can we process this differently? How can we learn the lessons, the proper lessons? Because usually you learn the wrong lessons, right? So something happens, let's say something traumatic happens in your childhood, and because it happened, the most that you can do as a child usually is go, well, this bad thing happened to me, so like I'm bad, right? And then that just stays with you forever, pretty much. And even as an adult, you can logically get by it, but you feel like I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, I'm bad, I'm this, I'm that, and so to me, again, it just kind of really makes sense to fix that belief so that it's those stories and those beliefs are not informing your thoughts and they're not informing your actions anymore. It's just going to help you move on. But the other side of it is, there's a lot of skills that you can integrate into your life that is going to make your life go more smoothly. So if you're struggling a lot, if you are, in various ways, if you're struggling to get things done every day, if you are procrastinating, if you are finding it hard to focus, if you're doing all these things, for example, here's a good difference between like therapy and coaching. I'm not saying that ADHD doesn't exist. Obviously not. However, more and more people in the internet generation, where notifications are flying at us like left and right, experience symptoms of it because of the environment, right? As opposed to being in this environment and going, well, let me go straight to pills and therapy and all that kind of stuff, which I'm not saying doesn't have its place. It certainly does. Do not listen to me for medical advice. What you could also try doing, which is a little bit harder because most people, well, I don't want to say most, but a lot of people are pretty okay with taking a pill to solve things, right? You could at least first exhaust a few options such as meditation, which is going to help you focus better. You could, another big aspect of that is actually healthy, active lifestyle and exercising a bit to get that energy out. When you're not burning physical energy, your mind struggles to focus more. Another thing, I don't know how, if you are a person who hasn't gone through your phone and your computer and basically turned off like every notification from every app, I don't know how you're even functioning in the world, because I have to do that to get anything done. And even then, I still get too many notifications on my phone, right? Because people will still message or text or whatever else. And like those things, those notifications aren't necessarily bad, but you should still, if not turn them off completely, there's times to use do not disturb. And you can even set that in your phone automatically to say, on this schedule, if this is when I work every day, if this is when I'm going to focus on my goals or whatever else, just automatically do this for me, right? Automatically block things. I guarantee you, there's really just about nothing in the world that can't wait an hour for you to get back to them, So, going back to the original topic, like coaching versus therapy and what can be really tackled here. As a coach, I'm happy to discuss, big topics. I'm happy to answer people in the chat. I'm happy to talk about tips and tricks and things like that. But the actual process of working with me one-on-one is going a bit deeper than what can be achieved through just chatting and talking on stream and all that kind of stuff, because it's going to be personalized to you. There's going to be accountability there. There's going to be different methodologies that I simply can't do over stream because it's personalized, right? But ultimately, what coaching looks like is often asking questions and helping you arrive at different places, different answers, different ways of looking at things, etc., than where you're at now. Now, I would put an asterisk, maybe asterisk. I think there's an S in there. An asterisk on that, in that I am what I think a lot of people would consider something like an edu coach. I don't adhere to the strict coaching questioning model because I think there's a time to bring in some of your own experience, right? So the strict coaching model would be, this person comes to me, problem, okay, why is that a problem? Okay, how does that make you feel? This, that, the other thing. And there's a series of questions. I don't want to just narrow it down to some basic questions and then boom, you're fixed. That's not how it works. But usually it's continuing to ask questions until the other person, or the person I'm working with, arrives at the answers themselves, right? However, I think there's a time where that is just kind of wasting time, and you can bring in suggestions or ideas or things like that that will just like help them along, because even though they might know like kind of generally what needs to happen, they might not know what those answers are, and I'm just kind of like bringing a shortcut in. So for example, if someone recognized, going back to the having trouble focusing thing, if we could get to a point where people recognized, oh, well, I need to be a little bit more in control of, maybe not in control of my mind, but not let thoughts come up and affect me immediately, not just kind of be driven by my thoughts, but kind of step back and be able to observe them, and ultimately recognize that some sort of mindfulness is what's required, then I can come in and talk about my experience with meditation. I have worked with a coach who I will probably mention soon. She was a client as well as someone who allowed me to kind of learn from her and go through what she had to teach and coach and things like that. And even her thing is the same way, where while she's coaching and asking questions, she's also bringing in different meditations that she's aware of to tackle different problems. She doesn't just go, oh, well, then you should, okay, well, what do you think you could do about that? And they're like, well, I can meditate on it. Okay, well, go do it. No, it's like, okay, you think you would need to do that? All right, well, here's this technique I know, let me bring it in. And I think, if I'm being really honest, that the best coaches I know don't really strictly adhere to the absolute coaching model of just asking questions and not giving any advice and not giving any tips, tricks, things from their own experience, etc. In fact, from my experience working with many coaches where they were my clients, I know that most people who do coaching, self included, are interested in doing it because usually you have some kind of niche. So you are my niche is working with gamers, and a big part of the work we do is trauma, and then also helping achieve goals, and those two are kind of intermixed. But that's the main focus of what I'm doing. There's divorce coaches, there's business coaches, there's money mindset coaches, there's this, there's that. Usually they're doing it because they have experience with it. So to suggest that they can't bring any of their experience in and just kind of, be true coaches in the sense that they just ask questions and they could kind of coach anyone around any topic just by strictly adhering to the typical coaching process, I think is kind of stupid. I mean, why am I coming to you if you're not going to bring some of your own expertise in as well? Now, to be fair, that can take the form of knowing the right questions to ask a little bit more from your own experience, but generally speaking, to me, it just seems like, you're hiring someone because you connect with them, and also because They understand where you've been. They hopefully have some experience with it themselves, so that they, it's one thing to just have knowledge, it's another to have wisdom born out of experience. I think there's a lot of people who I think if you look at therapists or coaches who are maybe not super effective, part of it could be that it's just not in their personality, no matter how much training there is. And by personality, I almost mean things like their thought processes and things like that, where they just struggle with it. And I'll give you an example. When I went to college a while ago, I went for computer science, and it was like a 3-minute conversation with my guidance counselor in high school. It was like, well, you like computers, right? Uh-huh. Well, then you want to go to do comp sci, right? I guess, right? When I got there, I found out that I absolutely hated it. I am not a programmer. I can do some basic code. I understand it. I can like kind of read code, but I just, and if I really, really wanted to, I could knock out basic programs. Like I'm solid enough on computers and knowing how computers operate that I can kind of think in that way, but it requires a bit of an attention to detail that just frustrates the shit out of me. Like, if one semicolon is in the wrong place, like the whole thing breaks, and I'm just like, I don't have fucking time for that. I really don't. Like, it just annoys the shit out of me. What I actually like about computers is that I get to create things, and had I recognized that, like, graphic design and marketing were an option back then, which were not on my radar at all, and no one really took the time to ask, well, what do you like doing on computers? I would have said, well, I like designing websites, because that's what I was doing in my free time. I was making, fan sites for games. I was, or the guild I was in for whatever MMO or this, that. To be fair, back then computers just weren't as understood by guidance counselors in their, 50s or 60s at the time. So, we're talking like super early 2000s, like Google had just come out in the past year or two. It was a thing where, I can't totally blame them, and I'm not trying to say that it wasn't my own responsibility to like do a little bit of thinking about my life. But nonetheless, the point that I am trying to make here, and I don't even remember, to be honest, I kind of lost my train of thought. Where was I? Someone in chat, help me out. This is annoying. God, what was I saying? Well, anyway, I can tell you that college did not go well. Because I was so frustrated and I didn't like it and I dropped out. And therapists and coaches and why they're not good. That just wasn't matching up to my likes and my interests and my skill set and how I operate as a person. And it's possible that a therapist or coach, it can sound like a good idea, or in the case of therapy, it can be, well, okay, this seems like it might be a decent career path, and then they just kind of struggle with it and fail, right? But I think the other side of it is that you have people who just really haven't gone through shit in their lives, and they kind of have like the ivory tower understanding of it and the knowledge without having the wisdom of or experience of like truly going through shit. Now, that might be a little bit of an unfair statement because a surprising amount of people have gone through shit, but there are different levels to it, and I think the professionals that failed me, or I shouldn't say failed me, but that I felt I had really made no progress with, were ones that, while they could sit there and know what I was talking about, I don't get the sense that they ever really understood like where I was at in those dark times. And that often it made them unable to be empathetic or compassionate, right? In a certain sense. And I'll give a really solid example. The last therapist I went to a few years ago, when I was really struggling and trying to get back on my feet after being laid low and really hitting rock bottom, I went in the first session and sat down, and I was trying to give a backstory of the things that had happened over the past year or two that led me to coming there, and like what the real issue was. And so I got into what happened, and then I was trying to explain a night where I just absolutely broke down and was screaming, and like it was like 2 hours of just absolute unleashing everything out of me onto this other person. And as I'm explaining this and trying to set the scene and show what I went through, the guy interrupts me and he's like, well, that didn't do anything, right? Excuse me? Are you fucking kidding me? It was the most useless... I should have walked out right there. I can't believe I was interrupted by a professional who was trying, as I was laying out what happened and trying to just simply explain where I was at and what I had gone through. No shit, dude. I didn't think I was achieving or accomplishing anything by screaming at someone for 2 hours. Like, that was gonna fix it. Like, fucking duh. Right? So, and I could tell he just did not... He only had a knowledge rather than wisdom. Decided that was going to be his job or his career, went to college for it, and the whole way through there was just a detachment that really, despite going for like a few months and finally calling it quits, just no progress was made. So why am I saying all of this and talking about coaching and therapy and all that kind of stuff? Going back around, I think a lot of coaches get into what they're doing because they have experience with it, and they should bring that experience in. It is partially for this reason and partially for others that I am not... The big organization in the coaching world is the ICF. There is no government oversight in coaching like there is in therapy. You need to be licensed, you need to show that you graduated, hold degrees, all that kind of stuff to be able to practice any kind of therapy. You don't have to do any of that shit with coaching. The ICF is kind of based on the model that I was talking about before, where it's just pure coaching, and asking questions, which I don't fully agree with. And also, at this point, because of the explosion of the industry, I think they're just basically taking people for a few grand and pumping out coaches left and right and being like, here's your little ICF badge that you can put on your website. That's not a path that I'm really interested in. My path has been working with a mentor who is actually a master coach. They've been in practice for over 15 years now, probably close to 15 plus years. Thousands of hours of coaching. They have mentored other coaches before as well. If you are looking for a certification, then I'm not your guy. I would rather, and to be fair, there's not just ICF certifications. If you're interested in hiring any coach, you can go on Udemy and get a life coaching certification for like a few $100. You can go get a spend a few hundred more and get NLP certified. I'm not saying that these things don't have some merit, but quite frankly, the certifications in the coaching industry are kind of bullshit. And for what it's worth, I have a problem with those things too. I have spoken with a number of people who sought me out for my services when they would become my clients, as far as designing websites or internet marketing and things like that, where it was not a good fit because I didn't think they were really... I didn't think they should be doing what they were doing in the first place. So, with the issues of the industry out of the way, I just want to be really clear, because this did come up a few days ago. People were asking about my background. What, have you done these things? People were saying, well, what does coaching look like? You should explain that. How is it different than therapy? What can you address? What can't you address? What I've been trying to explain over the past 35 minutes or so is really leading up to this point. There is a difference between coaching and therapy. There's a difference between the different quality of therapists and coaches in both their experience or their skill set. There are things that I simply can't handle that therapists can handle because it'd be illegal for me to do. I'm not going to get into mental illness. When it comes to coaching, I am an edu-coach. I have trained and continue to train under a master coach, and that person may actually come on the stream in a few weeks. I talked to them about it. We'll see. And just overall, if you're resonating with the things I'm saying, and the certification doesn't matter to you, you can inquire to me, either DM or go on my website. There's a contact form or whatever to see what that looks like as far as working one-on-one. I don't want to turn this whole stream into a big pitch for me. That's not really what it is, but enough people had questions that I wanted to clarify this a little bit. The one other thing I want to say about the difference between coaching and therapy is there are some people who were saying it took them a while, but they found a good therapist, and this technique worked, like CBT worked or whatever, and that's great. I'm not trying to monopolize healing the world. If you had a therapist that worked, if you had a technique that worked, if you had another coach that worked, any of these things, like, more power to you. I'm actually glad that you're not suffering or struggling as much anymore. It doesn't matter if it was because of me or not. That's totally inconsequential to me. However, why is there a place for coaching in the world? It's because that for as many people as therapy has worked or they've had, good experiences with, there's probably the same or more that have struggled to find a good therapist, or what's going on there simply hasn't worked for them. The therapist is going through more therapy models, and sometimes the person's almost a little too smart. Sometimes, again, the therapist is just doing talk therapy, and you're just kind of going in circles, and it's like, okay, well, tell me what happened this week. Well, if you just kind of keep talking about the things that happened this week and okay, well, here's something you could do, or what do you think you could do about that? And you're just kind of focusing on the now, it can be hard to see real progress. And especially nowadays, I think the industry is like, well, they will look at the symptoms, and they go, well, maybe the chemicals in your brain are off a little bit, so we'll give you a pill. Well, duh. Depression is... I do not believe, and again, I'm not a doctor, I don't believe that the vast majority of Americans have chemical imbalances in their brains for no fucking reason, and that is just what it is. These things are symptoms. If you're depressed, it's because you're upset about something, and that is your body and mind's way of telling you that you have something in your life that you need to fix. right? Now, it could be a current situation, it could be a past trauma, but there's something there that you need to process and heal and do something about. That's the signal, right? And too often, especially in modern medicine, it's like, oh, well, that's going on, so we'll give pills and we'll just kind of manage that, and that it is what it is. We don't look at why it might be the case. I'm not saying all therapists don't look at why it's not the case. There's a number of them out there that are willing to go deeper, are willing to go into the past, are willing to uncover shit, are willing to heal it and not have clients that just continue forever until they finally get tired of working with that therapist and finally go, you know what, I just need to find a new therapist because I don't feel like we're making any progress. No, there are actually therapists out there who certainly want to graduate their clients out of therapy. And in my opinion, a good coach should be doing the same thing. Like, I'm not looking to have clients who come to me and work with me forever. There should be things that we're looking to achieve, and once you achieve those things, you should graduate out of being coached by me. Now, you can always come back for check-ins or this or that, but and maybe new things come up and it's time to resume. Who knows? But, you know, we should be looking at outcomes. So again, disclaimer. I know what I just said is a critique about therapy and pills and all of those kinds of things. That critique is based on my own experiences, as well as what I hear from a lot of other people who've said, yeah, I've gone through multiple therapists, I don't feel like I'm making any progress. You know, it's become a thing nowadays for people to be like, well, you got to find the right one. You just got to keep trying until you find the right one. You know, I had to go through 8 therapists until I found one that started to work. Maybe it's also that the approach of therapy in general needs some coaching techniques brought in, and all the therapists that you're talking to don't have that. Maybe you actually are looking for coaching rather than therapy to really start making progress. Different things work for different people, and it's okay if therapy worked for you and you don't need a coach, but it's also okay if therapy doesn't work for you and some of what I'm talking about is making a lot more sense than anything that you went through in therapy. So if that's the case, again, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a doctor, don't listen to me for medical advice, but if it's the case where this stuff's resonating, stick around and hopefully you will take things away from this and it will make your life better. And if you're really struggling and stuck on stuff, you can talk to me, we can have a consultation call, you can DM me, you can reach me through my contact form, you can do a whole bunch of stuff. It's not hard to get in touch with me and we can explore working together one-on-one if that's something you want to do. Now, with that all out of the way, I feel like that sums it all up. I don't want to keep hammering on the fact that you can hire me. That's not really what these streams are about, but it felt like it was necessary to really fully go through and address for people who had questions, because many were coming to me wondering, you know, what is this? What do you do? What do you not do? Can you talk about this on the stream? Can you handle that? And I don't know. There might be some more questions about that going forward, but we'll see. Hopefully this clears it up and there's not even more questions about it after all that. So, let's take a break. Now, oh nice, new song just kicked in. Perfect timing. Something came up in the Discord of a game that most of my viewers are going to know. And it was a comment by someone, and I'm going to read the comment exactly, and I want to dive into this because someone did ping me over it, and I didn't want to respond right there in the moment, and it you know, it's something that I felt was worth it to dive into on the stream rather than just trying to type it into the Discord, right? And plus it gives me more content. They were discussing being happy and content and that not being okay. And their argument, here's what they said exactly, and I don't want to misquote them, so I copied and pasted it so that I could read it, If you're happy, it means you're content. And being content means you're okay with your life, and there is no way anyone on this earth should be okay with their life. Life isn't meant for you to be okay with it. They did go on to make another comment saying that they were okay with themselves, but they weren't okay with life. And this is actually an interesting topic, right? Because is there a line there? Is there is it the case that we should be striving to be happy and content? Or is it the case that we should never be content? Right? And I think this person is really going to the extreme that we should never be content, we should never be happy. And there's something to be said for it. I think that while I don't agree with the person entirely, it may surprise some people, I don't know, that I don't disagree with them entirely either. And in fact, I think they're not terribly far off the mark, but there's actually a middle way. So, yes, it's the case that if you were happy and content fully, first off, if that were the case, you're probably enlightened. And the reason I say that is because if not, there's probably something that deep down you're still wanting to reach or achieve. So in a sense, even if you said you were happy and content, unless you were literally enlightened like a Buddha, you're probably not. Now you could say overall, but it would be hard to be 100% because there's likely some attachment, if we want to get into Buddhism, attachment to an outcome in this case, right? And that's because as humans, we're wired for problem solving and growth. So, if everything was perfect, you'd probably go insane, assuming you weren't enlightened. If you were, then you'd probably be real zen and chill with it. But there's only been like a handful of those people all throughout history, so maybe a little more. I guess we could throw, there's been a number of Dalai Lamas. I don't know how many of them we consider to be enlightened, although I believe they all believe that it's the same spirit just traveling into different human vessels. So technically it could just be one. But you get what I'm saying. Like it's the vast majority of us, anyone watching this stream, is probably not enlightened. So there's got to be a balance here, because if you are always unhappy and not content, you are going to be miserable, right? It's going to be difficult to have happiness and joy in your life if you're always like, I'm not happy, I'm not content, I gotta achieve this, I gotta achieve that, so on and so forth. And that's not really healthy or conducive to achieving the goals you actually want, because if you're just like constantly on your case about it, you're going to be beating yourself down, and that's not super effective. And I say that from my own experience of being at a low point and just beating myself up because I was at a low point and not where I'm at. On the flip side, I don't know that many people are truly happy or content if they're not doing things that keep contributing to their growth anyway, in some way. Now, it can be the case in your very old age when you're kind of done. Let's say you're in a wheelchair and you're just kind of you're asleep half the day anyway. At that point, the best thing you can do is maybe read some books or watch some lectures just to kind of keep your mind engaged. But it's not like if you're like on your way out and in the final few years, it's going to be really hard for you to get around and do a whole lot of stuff that is advancing yourself in many ways anyway, right? Those people aside, if you're, I don't know, 75 or younger, this still probably applies to you. It's going to be difficult for you to just be like, nope, I'm happy and content, and that's why he wasn't exactly wrong. You're going to have some kind of goal you want to achieve. You're going to have something you want to maintain. You're going to have dreams, goals, etc. And if you're not actively working towards it, you're going to probably be depressed, anxious, dislike yourself at the very least, so on and so forth. And I'm not saying those are the only reasons that you might dislike yourself or be depressed or anxious. I'm just saying those are contributing factors. So we got to find some kind of middle ground here where we're actually we accept that we're not content, but we are also not beating ourselves down and dragging ourselves down and being unhappy and all that kind of stuff. So what can we do about that? I think in a very practical sense, while it's okay to have goals, you really want to start thinking about life as far as systems instead. So it's totally okay to have a goal, but if you're measuring your life by the goal or the achievement of the goal or anything like that, you are not necessarily setting yourself up for failure, but I just think there's a better way through systems instead. What do I mean by this? Because we are imperfect human beings, because we're fallible, because we can't always win and nail it every time we work on something, right? We think that actually I made this stream better, so I'm gonna bring something up right now to give a visual of what I'm talking about, because that's why I set all this shit up in the first place. Where is it? Let's see if this works. Pretty cool. As you can see on my screen, we think progress looks like this, where it's linear. That's not what progress is. You can see it's actually, and it's not necessarily even a line, it's a bunch of dots. It's a bunch of instances of working and trying and succeeding or failing, and ultimately we're looking to trend upwards, but it's not like that all the time. And sometimes, to be honest, while you might make progress on something, you might also find that while that progress mattered for whatever it was, there's a stopping point where it just doesn't continue indefinitely. It's like, okay, I got what I wanted, now it's time to stop, or I'm interested in something new, or whatever the case is, right? So if you focus on systems, instead of focusing on what the results are, you're focusing just on your effort and making sure you showed up that day. And honestly, if you start looking at it this way, over time the results start to take care of themselves. Let's do something that's a little bit more concrete, like weight loss, right? If you want to lose weight, so many people go, well, I want to lose a pound a week, 2 pounds a week, which would be something that's, let's say a half a pound to a pound a week is usually pretty reasonable. Most people would say that 2 pounds a week is typically aggressive, unless you're someone like David Goggins, who is an absolute animal. And if you don't know that guy or his story, you can go Google him and look him up. He had to lose like over 100 pounds or something in 3 months, and he basically literally just rode on a exercise bike all day, every day, and ate like a banana, a piece of like boiled chicken, and some broccoli, like literally like 300 calories a day, and he just went nuts and just burned like 30 to 40 pounds of fat a month or something like that, which is damn near inhuman. But it is possible because he's a human. So, assuming you're not him, again, half a pound to a pound would be reasonable. 2 pounds is a little aggressive, right? Okay, it's okay to kind of have those general targets. But, again, if you look at this, if you've ever tried to lose weight before, you know that the scale can fluctuate a few pounds either way each day, and that's just based on a few different factors. You could be a little bit more hydrated one day than the next when you weigh yourself on the scale, and as much as you might be consistent weighing yourself on the scale at the same time every day, usually it's good like right when you wake up, nonetheless you can still have some fluctuations, and the scale's not even actually the best way to like measure these things, to be honest, because at the same time, if you start working out, let's say you start, I don't know, lifting weights and doing cardio, well, those things can be a little counterproductive, like lifting weights and adding muscle while trying to lose weight, and by weight we usually mean fat. You could be adding some muscle weight, right? So over the course of 2 months, let's say you put on a pound of muscle each month, right? Which is a fairly average, assuming and you'd probably see some beginner gains just by, let's say you were just starting off with this, right? Let's just say 2 pounds. And you were going for a pound a week, which was a reasonable goal of fat loss. So over the course of 2 months, you were looking to lose 8 pounds, but you would have put 2 on. So maybe you fell short of your goal and only hit 6, right? Well, the scale doesn't really count for that. So a better way is actually to use like a measuring tape to check your measurements and see, like visibly see what your waist is at, right? To see what your shirt size is. If you see that going down, if you were a 38 and now you're a 36, but the scale hasn't changed because you lost a few pounds, slowly, but you put on a pound or 2 of muscle, that's okay, because you're still going for the ultimate goal here of losing fat, right? But the point is, because these things can fluctuate, and because some of those outcomes, are a little bit out of your hands, what is in your hands, let's switch back to me, what's in your hand and what you can do is focus on the systems. If you are doing the things you need to do every day, then the results start to take care of themselves. And they might not be, oh, well, I hit this target on this date, which can cause you to be upset or not content or whatever. Or, there's things, especially in weight loss, like you sometimes hit plateaus, right? So it could be like an entire week goes by and you see no progress, right? And if you're focused on those goals and you're focused on those outcomes, you're going to kind of get down. If you're focused on systems and knowing that you did the things you need to do that day, or that week, or whatever else, then you really can let go of the outcomes because they'll eventually get there anyway. And you're stressing yourself out less, and you can be happy and content, going back to the original point that I was talking about here. You can be happy and content because you know you did what you needed to accomplish or achieve. And as long as you got those things handled, you can then go spend your time doing other things. Like relaxation and recovery is super important, especially, I was just talking about weight loss, but in the exercise world, if you're lifting weights at all, like you really don't even want to lift weights every day, especially not starting out. At least if you're a professional bodybuilder, this doesn't apply to you. Most of the time, if you're doing like any kind of weight training, like starting strength, which is the one that I follow and would recommend if anyone wanted to get into weightlifting, we're talking about doing 3 times a week of compound lifts, right? And recovery is super important. You need to get good sleep. You need to take a day off and not work those muscles every day. Otherwise, you're going to wear yourself out. You're going to get to a point where injuries are much more likely and eventually happen, so on and so forth. If you're just focused on the goals, you can drive yourself nuts and not be... there's a few issues that can happen there. You can overwork yourself and burn yourself out. You can truly... Actually, let me stay on that topic. By burning yourself out, if you go hard nonstop to the where it's like, this is my goal and I'm just going to work on this, everything else is going to be put to the side. Well, first off, other things in your life can fall apart if you do that. And I think you can probably find a few examples in your own life. Let's say if you procrastinated and then you had to rush to do something at the very end over a few days and you realized that everything dropped. I think it's very obvious for people, especially in the gaming world, and especially if you've dealt with any kind of addiction or anything like that. Whereas, having a goal and working on it nonstop might not necessarily be thought of as an addiction. I don't want to say it is. You're still investing so much time into something that the rest of your life is maybe dropping, in the same way that being addicted to playing games might cause you to not be making progress in lots of other areas of your life. But if you have systems, if you go, I know I'm going to lift weights 3 times a week and I'm going to follow this system, like I have a little starting strength app on my screen or on my phone. If I follow that, it's going to get me eventually to where I want to be. It's not so much... I can know, okay, well, at a certain point, I'd like to be able to, bench press 150 pounds or whatever your goal is, right? It's like, okay, that's going to take some time. But if I set a date that's going to happen by, I might overtrain, I might injure myself and do all these stupid things. You can set a goal out maybe way in the future for something like that, but you should be focused on the systems. You should be focused on, okay, well, what's my system to achieve this? Well, 3 days a week, I am going to... Google is... The voice command popped up and it's trying to answer that question for me. I'm going to lift weights 3 days a week, and I know, generally speaking, I should make roughly this much progress. But it's not going to be linear. Going back again to what I just showed on the screen, it's like there's going to be times that you fail. There's going to be some days that your body is just not up to it and you can't lift as much as you did the 2 days before. There's going to be times when you need to make tiny adjustments. Once you reach a certain point where when you're failing a lot, instead of just deloading, but then you get up and you hit the same plateau and you hit the same plateau. At those times, what is sometimes recommended is, instead of doing, like, let's say 3 sets of 5, if you're into weightlifting at all, you'll know what I'm talking about. 3 sets of 5 would be, you do 5 reps and then you take a break and you do another 5 reps and you take a break and you do another 5 reps and you're done. You've done 3 sets of those 5 reps, right? What will sometimes need to be done is, at a lower weight, they'll say, okay, do 7 reps instead, or I'm gonna have you start doing 5 reps of 5 or 5 sets of 5 or something like that, right? So you have to find workarounds to get there, but you hit walls. It's not linear progress. And if you think, oh, well, this is what the system says, I should just go up and every day I will add 5 pounds of weight and then I will eventually hit 150 on this day, it's not going to work for you, right? So I would really, again, coming back around, I'd emphasize systems, and the point is you are striving towards the goals and the things you want, and recognizing that you're not content because you've set a goal, right? And it's something you don't have. But that's okay, right? It's okay because, again, we are problem-solving machines. We're growth-oriented. If you're not growing, you're dying, generally speaking. It gives you a purpose. Whatever you think is important to you to achieve, and there's multiple things that could be important to you. You could have your health goals, you can have your relationship goals, you can have your work goals, you can have your financial goals, you can have your just like general lifestyle and wellness goals. You can have multiple, but if you're just focusing on that you don't have those things yet, it means you're okay with your life. Going back to what he said, like if you're content, it means you're okay with your life. In those cases, if you focus on not having those things, then you're not content. That's kind of the argument that he's trying to make, but I think that's just not the right way to look at it, generally speaking, because you're just focusing on your lack, you're focusing on how you suck, you're focusing on what you don't have, all these things. It will drag you down. I've been there before. I used to look at things this way. It doesn't really work. It's not super conducive for actually achieving those things, to be honest. A better way would be, there's an ideal I have of myself, and it's always a moving target. I'll never reach my ideal, because once I reach that ideal, I should have already, been upgrading my ideal. And actually, it reminds me, there was a great acceptance speech by Matthew McConaughey where he accepted an award, and he talked about this very thing, that someone asked him who his idol was, and he said, it's like me in 5 years, right? It's a moving target. It's always 5 years away. He'll never be that guy, but he's always trying to get there. But if you just focus on the fact that you're not that guy or that girl or whatever you are, Oberyn focuses that he's not that dog, you're going to drag yourself down. So again, focus on the systems. Focus on, okay, these are the things I want. What is a reasonable way for me to get there, right? And start small. Again, this kind of goes back to habit formation, which we talked about the other day. If you are like, oh, well, I want to lose 80 pounds, right? I've done that before. If you want to lose 80 pounds, then it's like, okay, instead of like, well, by this date or whatever else, it's like, well, what do I need to change in my life to start doing that? Well, the first thing you probably want to do is replace a can of soda with a glass of water once a day, and do that for a week or two, right? We talked with someone on Thursday who was like, I'm overweight, I don't have a whole lot of space, I feel fat and ugly, this, that, the other thing, which is awful. Their goal should not be to change every dinner to being like broiled chicken with broccoli and carrots on the side, and maybe a small, like half of a baked potato with just a tiny bit of butter and no sour cream at all. Like that's just too much. That's too fast, too soon. Start with the water thing. Okay, the next thing is, can we work a salad in as a meal with like grilled chicken or something on it, or even start with crispy chicken for the first week? I don't care. Can we work that in 2 times a week, two lunches a week? Can we swap out the burger and fries for a grilled, or possibly once in a while, crispy chicken salad? If you don't have any, if you don't like this company, then don't go. But if you do, Chick-fil-A has an awesome salad. It's I believe a Southwestern salad. They have avocado ranch dressing. It's delicious. You can still go get these things at fast food places if you are typically eating fast food. If you don't like Chick-fil-A, McDonald's has some salads. Wendy's has salads. You can go to any of these places. They all offer a salad with chicken. Try to start working that in. So now we got a glass of water instead of a Coke once a day, and we have salad twice a week, and you just start building. You build systems and go, okay, these are the things that as I switch and integrate healthier habits over time, if I'm falling back on these systems, if I'm doing what I need to do, the results will eventually take care of themselves, right? This is not just something that I say as a coach. This is repeated often by sports coaches. This is repeated by generally successful people. They certainly have their goals and outcomes. If you're a sports coach, you are typically wanting to win the championship, right? Like your team wants to win the Lombardi Trophy, the Stanley Cup, whatever else. You don't go oh, if we don't achieve this goal, we just need to work until we achieve this goal, or it's all for nothing and we suck until we achieve this goal. That's a stupid way to look at it. Instead, it's like we need to be doing what we need to be doing to get better day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year, to win more games. The more games we win, the further we'll go. We'll eventually make the playoffs. And obviously, the management has a part in that because they need to bring in players who are of a higher skill level and maybe ship out some that are not. But there's also internal player development. Players get drafted and they get better year after year. And then maybe they, bring in some vets to help or whatever else. There's more to it. But if you are starting from a place where you suck, you're the last in the league, simply going, well, our goal is to win the Stanley Cup, and not focusing on the systems and everything, it's just dumb. You're really not going to get anywhere. So, I hope I pronounced this right. Rianala. Can you be content and still have aspirations? I think that's kind of what I think the contentment comes in two forms. It is the fact that you are working on things you're working, right? So you can be content in the fact that you did what you needed to do that day, right? So it's like, did I work out today? Yes, I worked out today. Cool. Well, that was just like a 30 minutes or an hour or even an hour and a half, depending on what it was, but it didn't have to be all day, and it didn't have to be like, okay, cool. Well, I worked out until I met my goal. It's also the contentment of the fact that you're actually working on things that matter to you. And this goes into a bit deeper philosophy, which I know you have heard me talk about. The difference, I think, kind of in general between what might be the Buddhist prescription versus what might be my prescription. The Buddhist prescription might be to release attachment from everything, in the sense that they might go, well, let go of the need to lose weight. Just accept yourself as is, right? But you have to do that across the board in life. And I think in the modern world, that is really difficult to achieve, because you are like, am I supposed to not be attached to my dog, right? Am I supposed to not be attached to my family? Am I supposed to not be attached to even the desire to do what I'm doing and to help people in whatever way that I can? It's hard to get there unless you're willing to maybe go live as a monk and really give up just about all your possessions, all your attachments, and spend a lot of time every day working internally to get yourself to a good state where you are super accepting of anything, right? Now, to be fair, I'm not saying that stuff, that the awareness of that and a lot of the techniques in regards to meditation, detaching from certain situations, letting go, forgiving, which is a topic I will get into in the not too distant future. All of that stuff is great. We should absolutely take it from the practitioners of that and all the wise ancient texts and all that kind of stuff. It's not an all or nothing thing that I'm suggesting here, where it's like, well, because we live in a modern world where we're still going to have attachments to things like even just your dog, that means it's all for nothing. Like that's clearly not the case. We can use those techniques to detach from the things that what I would maybe describe as, I don't know, less important, or simply to reduce our anxiety about the things that in the long run probably don't matter. I think an example here might be, let's say you have a job where you need to go in and make a presentation to your boss or something, and it could be a big deal, and that can be anxiety producing, right? You want to do a good job, you want to nail it. Or hell, let's say you're starting a stream up as a life coach, right? And it's your first day of streaming and you really want to nail it and you really want to make sure that you're putting out good information and that people like it and they get something out of it and all that kind of stuff, right? You could have a little bit of anxiety about just wanting to do a good job. At the end of the day, when I die, am I going to be looking back and like, had I fucked up on that initial stream, would I be thinking like, God, my life would have been great if not for that thing, like where I fucked up? Like, no. Chances are I'm thinking, God, I hope I spent my life in a good way where I was spending it with the people I love. I was doing things that mattered to help other people. I was doing things that brought me joy, not in a sense of like drinking alcohol and partying, but I was doing things that were fulfilling to me, such as exercising my creativity. You know, I play drums, so was I spending my free, relaxing time doing things that were enriching to me and all those kinds of things. So we can use a lot of those techniques. What I'm saying is to kind of detach a bit from the outcomes or issues that like probably in the long run don't really matter, and we can kind of zoom out a little bit and, you know, be mindful. Like if when those anxieties are coming up in the moment, you can kind of catch yourself and go, hold on my deathbed, am I really going to be thinking about this? Probably not. Zoom out. Next week, will I be thinking about this? Probably not. Tomorrow, will I be thinking about this? Probably not. 6 hours from now, will I be thinking about this? Probably not. 1 hour from now, will I be thinking about this? Yeah, maybe. I might be thinking about this thing in an hour from now. Maybe even 2 hours from now. Probably not 6 hours from now. Alright, well, if the max you're thinking about something is only like 2 hours from now, then it's probably not that big of a deal. And again, going back, you can detach from those things. So there is a place for the techniques that and the philosophies and ideas that are promoted by Buddhism, and we can work those into my own life philosophy, let's say. However, where I think you can be content while having aspirations is it's built into meaning and purpose. And if I'm not willing to fully detach from everything in the world so that I can reach enlightenment, which I'm really not. I'm not looking to be a Buddha. I'm not looking to detach from my dog. And I am going to be sad and have suffering when he eventually passes. Then what I can do is focus on, okay, I can be content in the systems I've set up right now that I know I'm going to stream 2 hours a day, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday for people. And that's going to advance me putting out, hopefully, good stuff into the world that hopefully people are taking something away. Hopefully people are getting something out of it. It's enriching their lives. It's making their lives a little bit better. They're taking some of my advice and hopefully implementing it. You know, I'm not looking to be anyone's guru here. I'm not looking to just be looked up to, or like this is something that's fun to watch and I know this guy because he plays the same game I do and all that kind of stuff. If you're not actually listening to what I'm saying and doing something with it, then like I don't know what you're doing. You know, you're kind of bullshitting yourself, to be honest. And I'm not trying to like shit on any viewers, especially on the third day in. But you know, the point of this is not to just watch me and go like, oh yeah, those are good ideas. Like, no, you actually have to like hopefully integrate some of what I'm saying, not all of it. You might disagree with some of it, but bring it into your life to make it better. So again, can you content and have aspirations? Yes, I do have aspirations. I have aspirations for putting on muscle. I do lift weights. I have aspirations for this business. I want to reach more people with it. But I can, and I can know that I have a North Star over here that I'm working towards as far as this business goes, that I want to reach a lot more people, that I want to help more people, that I want to have, more just... it could just all be boiled down to help more people, right? It doesn't matter how it's done, whether it's through the stream, one-on-one coaching, maybe there's group coaching in the future. I don't know. There might be courses. There's a whole bunch of ways that coaches reach out and help people, either monetized or not monetized, and that's just not even the point. It's just that there's lots of different ways that I can go down, and I will be exploring those as this gets bigger. But I can be content today, however many people are watching this, that it's not where I want to be, because I know I showed up, I know I prepared, I know I'm talking about these things, I know I'm hopefully making life a little bit better for even one viewer. And if not, I still showed up and did the work, and I'll show up again tomorrow and do the work, and show up again tomorrow and do the work. And after I've done this work for the day, right, I have hopefully ate well, I've hopefully again got my work accomplished. If it was my weightlifting day, which it wasn't today, it was yesterday, and I did accomplish that. Like, again, I can check it off. And actually, something worth thinking about, let me see if I can show this. I actually track this stuff on my phone. You can kind of see at the top there. Let me see if I can kind of see I have these little check boxes at the top, that as I'm doing the things every day that I need to do, and none of them are checked today, and that's because I actually had a 3-hour call prior to the stream, so I am now at about 4.5 hours of talking at a camera. I had to wake up early, I had to get ready for that. Normally I would have walked my dog, and that would have been checked off, and played with him. Normally I would have, again, like lifted or done some cardio. I try to journal every day. I want to get back to losing some more weight, so I'm going to be logging calories again, and also gratitude/pray. That's the other. These are like my top 5 things. As I go through the day, I can check those things, and then in the app, I can actually look, and I can, there's a concept called "Don't Break the Chain," which is something that is attributed to Jerry Seinfeld, although he doesn't seem to think he actually did it. There's some discrepancy there about whether he did or not. Doesn't really matter. The point is, if you have something to do that day, you want to do it, and then the next day and the next day, and you form a chain of having done it, and you want to basically see how long you can go before you miss a day. You can get really extreme with this. In fact, I did a don't break the chain thing for practicing drums, and I actually did it 1,065 days in a row, which is exactly 3 years. And you learn a lot about yourself in that, because I did that through snowstorms where the power was knocked out. I did it when I was sick. I did it traveling across the country, moving across the country. I had my little practice pad like in the passenger seat of the car at a rest stop, just to work on my drills and stuff that day. Holidays, birthdays, doesn't matter. Got it done. I'm going to come back around to the original topic, but if you do that, by the way, you can burn yourself out. So you want to be doing something reasonable. Even at a minimum of 15 minutes a day, I burned out on drums, and I had to take months off. It completely sapped all my enthusiasm for the instrument. It removed my creativity. I wasn't progressing. I hit walls, and I didn't know where to go. And so I was just repeatedly doing the same things over and over, and I just got sick of it. So it's something to keep in mind if you do that. But I would, again, recommend, and circling back and reiterating everything I was saying here, if you are focused on the systems, if you're focused on doing the things you need to do every day to advance your goals, whatever those goals are, you can be happy and content knowing that you did your work for the day, and then you can, not only that, be okay with whatever your relaxation is. For a lot of people watching this, that will be playing video games. And this almost seems like a decent time to kind of segue into another thing. Someone asked about talking about gaming addiction, and I think the overall on that might be for another day. But I will kind of touch on it here at least. The question was, let me just pull it up, because I don't want to misquote them or not get it exactly right here. Let me see if I can search for it real fast. Now, again, I am not a doctor. I am not a therapist. Please do not come to me for medical advice. Please do not take any of this as medical advice. Here we go. I think a good general topic is gaming addiction. I'd love to learn more about how people find the right balance between contributing their time, energy, and creativity to TK, which is Nexus, the Kingdom of the Winds, the game that so many of us play, that a lot of people will know me from. But if you're watching this and you don't know that game, it is a MMO that came out 23 years ago. It's super old. It's got like Super Nintendo graphics, but the special thing about this is that it has an incredibly interesting socio-political system where players can actually take on roles in the game as leaders or judges or things like that, and through these positions, although some people can use them for bad, a lot of people use them for good to invest their time and energy and creativity to host events for people, do things for other people, so on and so forth. And a lot of people will know me because I lead a pretty popular organization in the game called the Merchant Guild. But you don't have to be at that level. You can, there's other levels that, you know, even if the leader of that organization would be one of 12 total leaders that kind of run these top level organizations, you can be you know, a few steps below that in the game, but still do things to invest your time and energy to make the game world a better place for everyone, right? So he's asking in specific to this, but it could be applied to any other game where it's like, I'm investing a lot of time into this game. My brother, for example, doesn't have any time really for MMOs, but he plays Halo to the point where he actually plays competitively. Just before COVID broke out, I mean, I'm in Phoenix. He flew to Atlantic City to go to a tournament, and they actually did pretty well. Not like top 3 or 4 teams, but he got on a team at like the last minute, and I think they placed like 13th, you know, and beat out a lot of other teams who were expected to beat them, including the team that he was going to be on. And then I think they replaced him at like the last minute, so he kind of had to scramble. So good for him. And I kind of asked him, I was like, so based on where you placed and everything, does this kind of basically make you like one of the top 100 Halo players in the country? And he's like, well, he was pretty humble about it, but it goes to show that you don't have to play an MMO, but you can still invest a lot of time into games. Now, is he addicted? No, actually, this guy gets his stuff done every day. He works out. He eats incredibly healthy. I'm actually envious of like, he's got his shit together even more than I do. And you know, I don't want to say that. I only say that because some people came to me and was like, it seems like you got your shit together. And I'm like, I fail every day. Like, trust me, like, just because you see me on stream talking about all this doesn't mean that there are some days when I miss checking stuff off on the screen. There's days when you know, what is it that I fuck up and I forget to be grateful. There's days when I don't track all my calories, or, you know, whatever the case is. That guy's got even more self-discipline than I do. But I wouldn't say that he's addicted, and I wouldn't say I'm addicted to games. The thing about that is, if you are gaming or doing the things that you need to relax in a way that you're escaping, because you are you're doing it to avoid the things that you know you should be doing, or that you really kind of would want to be doing, but stuff is getting in the way. Again, usually fears and negative beliefs and intrusive thoughts, kind of born from shame or guilt or trauma or grief or anything like that. If you know you're not getting your shit done every day, or most days, or most things done most days, then you probably have some kind of problem. If you are taking care of the things that you have set out, and not some days will be perfect. If you're like my brother, most days will be perfect, but a a lot of days might not be too. Things come up, right? Your boss might call you, and or your family member might call you and say, I need this. And you kind of have to stop what you were doing that day and go help them handle it. And that means that something else got pushed off that day. And there's the argument that some people will say, well, if it really mattered to you, you would find a way to get it done and you wouldn't have excuses. And it's like, yes, for certain things, maybe that meant that you had to go to the gym after you helped the family member and not at your usual time. And you didn't just make the excuse, oh, well, this came up, that means I can't go to the gym today. If you would have otherwise had that time at night, then maybe you just need to go to the gym after dinner rather than in the late afternoon to knock out 45 minutes. And maybe that means you have a little bit less time that night, but you can still feel proud or good that you got that stuff done. And you can have contentment in it, and you weren't like really coming up with excuses because no, I need to play the game. Now in the game we all play, that might not be feasible because maybe that night you had plans to host an event and you told everyone at this time this is when it's going to happen, and so you're responsible for it, right? You said this is what was going to happen. And the point is that sometimes we have to make a choice where we can't all say, well, if it really mattered to you, you would have gotten it done. Like sometimes you just run out of time that day. But you got to be honest with yourself about it, and you got to know, is this a reason or is this an excuse? In fact, this is amazing. I just got an email from my very first life coach. He sent it out to his list, and he was explaining this exact thing, the difference between a reason and an excuse. And you got to answer yourself honestly there on that one. If it's a reason, okay, that's like a one-off thing usually. If it's an excuse, it's usually because every day, or not every day, but you regularly have reasons, right? If it's like a one-time thing, then it's probably a reason. If you have reasons often, then they're actually probably excuses. So I would say, bringing it back around, if you are struggling with gaming, if you're playing too much, again, this we have to kind of trace this back because it's a very big idea. Typically, that's because you are fighting internally with the things that you know that you should be doing or need to be doing or whatever else. But for some reason, something is in there, some negative belief, something else that is causing you to avoid it because you feel there's pain in doing that thing. Maybe you think you're going to fail. Maybe you think you're not worthy of getting whatever it is, maybe any of those things, right? And usually that is coming from some story or belief that is deeply seated that if it were adjusted and processed and looked at differently, then you would free yourself up to where that wasn't the case, and then you could start working on those things. If you were working on those things every day, you could still have the aspirations that you are trying to tackle by doing those things daily. And if you set a reasonable benchmark every day for doing it, like I am, or not even every day, it could be a weekly thing. So like with weightlifting, like I said, it's 3 times a week. So I can't have a daily thing in there where it's like I worked out every day. No, it has to be I worked out this day and then I rested the next day, and that has to count, right? Now you could do something like cardio or something if you wanted to fill the time in, if you wanted to say, oh, I want to exercise every day. But even then, generally speaking, most people would agree you want at least like one rest day a week to let your body heal. You know, like if that's a Sunday or a Saturday or whatever, that you don't go run or weightlift or whatever that day, just like take it easy, right? But if not for that, again, like you don't need a rest day on a gratitude practice, right? You don't need a rest day. I would advise building in a rest day for most things you have aspirations for. You don't necessarily need rest days for all healthy habits, though. Like you could journal every day, you could meditate every day, you could have a gratitude practice every day. But on things like weight loss or working out, or I'm trying to build my business or something, it usually helps to take a day off. Usually at least one, if not 2. But ultimately, you can have those aspirations, you can find, and if they are meaningful, you can find happiness and contentment in doing those actions that are reasonable daily or most days a week, that you know, okay, I showed up, I did what I needed to do, I put the work in, I put the effort in, I'm proud of the effort I put in. You do need to actually also consider the quality of what you're putting in, right? If I could go lift weights, but if I'm not actually looking to make progress and I just have, fuck arounditis, and it's like, that's really heavy, I'm just gonna like lift less weight because, I don't want to hurt myself here. Like, if you're not striving and pushing yourself and putting in a quality workout or quality work into whatever your project is or whatever you're doing, not that all things require a ton of effort. Some things are just repetitive, right? But other things, if they are real aspirations, often it will require you to show up well. Not just show up, but show up well. But you can find contentment in that, in doing a good job in that one thing, knowing that it was working towards your aspirations. And I think this is what the middle ground is. I think it's that you can look back on your day and go, I'm happy with that day. I'm content with that day. I knocked these things off my list. That was what I need to do. Maybe I even did a little bit extra. And now I can take my dog, I can go sit on the couch, or call him up into bed or whatever, and watch a TV show for an hour, and I can sit here and enjoy that, and I can be happy and content with my day. I can be happy and content now in this moment, enjoying life, because it's not all about just working on goals and everything, but it's also about enjoying the beauty of life. It's about enjoying those moments, right? It's about enjoying the time with your loved ones. It's about enjoying quality time with my dog, and just having him lay there and me petting him while I'm watching a TV show or something. It's, even though it's one of my activities as far as walking him and playing with him, and it's a system for me, it's quality time that I wouldn't necessarily say is, it is for my benefit because I get something out of spending time with my dog. He gets something out of spending time with me, both the interaction with me and exercise and playing and all that kind of stuff. But I wouldn't say that that's like some giant life goal, right? It's not like I'm in the same way that being a coach is, for example, but I can still, you have to remember, in addition to having these aspirations, in addition to being content that you did the things you needed to do to move those things forward daily or most days or whatever your time frames are, that you also should take the time to appreciate the beauty and wonder and magnificence of life, right? If you're not stopping to look around once in a while, if you're doing what that quote was saying, if you're happy, it means you're content, and being content means you're okay with life. Where I stop short on that is that you are not taking the time to smell the roses, so to speak. No one on their deathbed says, I wish I would have worked more. In fact, if you look, and you can Google like top 5 regrets of the dying, there was this woman who, I don't know if she was hospice or just, often worked with people in the final stages of their life. She kind of cataloged what she often heard coming from people. Usually, one of the top 5 is like, I wish I didn't work so much. Another one was, I wish I had the courage to be myself and not worry about what other people think. Another was spending time with friends, although I'd expand that to family or just loved ones in general, I think. I forget what the other 2 are, but in regards to the specific topic that I'm talking about here, there is a balance. There is a balance. It's exactly the overall, that's what I'm trying to say about a middle way. Stop focusing on the goals, focus on your systems. If you can be content with your systems, you will have other time in the day where you can play games, or you can spend time with your loved ones, or you can spend time with your dog, or whatever else, where you can also draw contentment in from those things, even though you're not achieving in those moments. And those moments are actually the ones that like really matter. It matters that we're growing and that we're achieving goals, but there's more to life than that. And the other part of it is making sure you are just spending quality time with yourself or the people you love, doing things that are enjoyable to you. As humans, we need relaxation. Sleep is super important for a reason, but also relaxation non-sleep wise is also super important. There are few people who can work flat out like 14, 16 hours a day every day for years. We call those people CEOs. Most people in today's society don't want to, they think that it's like, oh, well, it's because these people are assholes and they don't deserve these positions or whatever. Most people in society are, if they really looked at what CEOs of Fortune 500 companies actually need to deal with and do, they wouldn't want the position. They'd be terrified to take it. They would quit within a week if they were just thrown in there. You know, we think that, too often we're vilifying these people. And the reason for that is the kinds of people who are willing to work those positions often have dark triad traits. Psychopathy, Machiavellianism, and I don't know, I've been going for almost 5 hours talking to people right now, so I forget what number 3 is. Actually, if only I had a thing where I could pull up what the dark triad traits are. Narcissism, that's the other one. Narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy or psychopathy or whatever you want to say it is. It's easy to vilify those people because of that, because they often have those traits and they often do things that we don't love as a society. These are the kinds of people who, often aren't super empathetic towards their workers and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying that that's right. I'm just simply saying it is what it is. But the focus isn't on them, it's on the rest of us. Most of us are not willing to do that kind of work, and the reason is most of us aren't built for that. We are built where we need to relax. We are built where we need to sit and just watch a movie or play a video game or also do something creative. Not just things like read a book or watch TV, but we could play drums. We could actually paint. We could... I don't know if you're into making pottery, right? Clay vases and things like that. You could do that. We do need that as humans, and so I think that's the other side of contentment. I think it's on one hand, it's getting up and doing the things you need to do that day to reach your goals and taking contentment in that, and then once that's done, putting it to bed and recognizing that rest and relaxation and having fun and noticing the beauty in the world and all those kinds of things are also super important, and taking contentment in doing those things and actually enjoying life and going out on a date with your spouse sometimes, and once in a while having ice cream. Speaking of going on dates and having ice cream, most people will know who Tony Robbins is, right? The life coach that pretty much everyone knows. Also not ICF certified, by the way, yet somehow has a certification program for coaches. He was trained by a guy named Jim Rohn, actually, who was also not ICF certified. In fact, I'm not sure the ICF even existed when Jim Rohn was around. But anyway, I digress. Tony Robbins once talked about a story, and Tony Robbins is absolutely the guy who is almost like the quote that we're discussing here, where it's like, I'm not content. Like every day he has to go through his routine and he's achieving things every day and like going and more successful. I mean, Tony Robbins, if you don't know, is actually a billionaire, which seems surprising. It's because he kept growing and investing in more companies and growing them, and he's built a little empire of companies where he's an investor or he's the principal in it, or on some level. Obviously he has his coaching thing. He also runs a resort in Fiji. He has other companies that he is involved in at a very high level. And then on top of that, he has invested his money wisely because some of his clients are people like Ray Dalio, right? He went on a date with, I don't think it was his wife at the time. Her name is Sage. He had a wife previously. I'm talking about the one he's currently married to. And on one of their first dates, they went and Tony Robbins actually, for a long time, was just ate the same meals every day. Like, he would have fish with, you know, a vegetable or whatever, and like, it was all just the same thing. And he stopped eating fish because he was basically giving himself mercury poisoning because he was consuming so much seafood, and there's so much mercury in seafood now. So he switched to chicken. But anyway, like, they were eating, and he's like, "Oh, this is great. This is someone else who's like, you know, has goals and they're achieving things, and you know, they're kind of like me and all that kind of stuff." And it came around time to eat. You know, they were like, "Do you want dessert?" And she ordered like ice cream, like a sundae or something. He's like, What are you doing? Like, what are you doing? That's ice cream. Like, this calories. It's fattening, sugar, and like all this other shit." And she looked at him and she was like, "I'm living." And it kind of made him be like, "Oh, right. You know, like, there's time for eating healthy and going through the routine every day and all that kind of stuff. But there's also a time to go on a date and have a bowl of ice cream at the end with your spouse." Right? So I think that's probably not a terrible place to end for the day, since we're coming up on, we're a little shy of 2 hours. But I think I'll end with the monologue here. And if there's any other questions or anything like that, if anyone wants to comment in chat, I'm going to sit here. My throat is so sore after talking for 5 hours today so far. So I'm going to try to drink a little bit more water, or carbonated water. We can also just vibe to the lo-fi a little bit. Look at the dog. And not just questions about today, but if you have ideas about things you want to listen to going forward, topics to bring up, some of the things that I am thinking about talking about in the near future are more practical things that we can do. Yeah, he's thirsty too. I feel you. It's not very good. I don't know if I like that. This is the first time I'm trying this. Even life coaches need to drink some Red Bull sometimes. Yeah, I don't know about that one. Yeah, some of the things that I'm thinking about doing going forward, really talking about just like healthy habits day to day, things that can help you even if you haven't tackled some of the big stuff, to just get through day to day and kind of make yourself a little bit more effective. But if you have tackled the big things, then they will also make you more effective. You know, again, going back to my interest in kind of like systems and life hacking and all that kind of stuff, I'd probably really like to talk about, you know, things like just using a calendar properly, journaling, you know, meditation, a lot of stuff that we often hear like, oh, you should do this, you should do that, whether it's from friends or coaches or therapists or articles on the internet, you know, all these kinds of things. I think often we hear that we should do it and we have like, oh yeah, I should do that or whatever because this person said I should. Or, oh, I think I'd really like to get that. But I think where we kind of get held up sometimes is we often don't understand how or why we should be doing those things. Why should I meditate? And I kind of covered that in another stream earlier when I was talking about like the real purpose of it and kind of what the end goal is, at least in terms of achieving things as modern human beings, I'd say, right? Something to that effect. Like, yeah, I'll leave it there. If you could only give one piece of life advice to a stranger, what would it be? the sooner that you understand the true power of forgiveness and acceptance, the sooner your life is going to exponentially get better. Exponentially. And that is why I keep touching on and bringing up talking about recovering from trauma, and why I mentioned earlier that at a certain point in the not distant future I'm going to get into forgiveness, but it is if you're not already there, if you haven't already done those things, you won't believe how your life will change. If you have already done things in regards to truly forgiving and accepting various things, and I don't want to get into any specifics because everyone's life is different. Everyone has had different experiences, they've struggled, etc. And then you probably would agree with what I just said if you do have experience with that. So I know that's way bigger. If you want a piece of life advice as far as like, well, could we like make that a little smaller and a little more practical? Because that's kind of a big topic, right? What would I say is the most practical life advice that I could give in the terms of like a life hackery sense or getting things done or anything like that? That would probably be, you need a system a reliable system to unload your thoughts instantly. Your brain is awful at remembering things when they need to be remembered. It will spit stuff out to you at random times, and it will not spit stuff out to you at the times you often need it. So my phone, if you really look at the screen here, this middle one right here is actually for my project management / to-do list software, which is called ClickUp. That's for me, I need something at that level because I have multiple projects, different clients, different things I'm tracking in life where that kind of software makes sense for me. If you don't do that and you just need more of a personal system, the one I used before this that I highly, highly, highly recommend is called Todoist. And although right over here is the actual ClickUp icon to get into the app, this is a widget for me that as soon as I hit it, it pops up and allows me to just start typing instantly into like an inbox. This idea comes from the book Getting Things Done. You basically need to capture stuff immediately. I like it on my phone because I always have my phone with me no matter what, and I can immediately tap that button, type whatever it is that came into mind. Other people, if you're a little more old school, like a pen and paper, and then at the end of the day they might have like their daily planner or something, and they take the little pad and pen and whatever it was that day, and then they put it into their daily planner or whatever. I'm far more techie than that. I don't like writing things. I seriously struggle with writing. I much prefer to type. I like that it's all synced. Like that works for me. But your life will, if you're not doing something like that, you might be forgetting things. You might be spinning your wheels because it's like, I forgot to get this at the store. I forgot to go to the store. I forgot to do this. I forgot to do that. By having something, I've trained myself. As something comes up in my head, I immediately grab my phone. I immediately take this out. I immediately write what it is down. And because I'm in my project management software, it's usually on one of my monitors very often, and I can refer to it through the day, like what should I be doing, what do I have to do today, what are the things. I actually have my project management software on one side of my screen and my calendar on another. and I have a multi-monitor setup here. This top monitor is devoted to that. Usually it's those two things side by side, so at any given time I can see what I should be doing, what I want to be accomplishing, all that kind of stuff. That's not the only thing on here that is instant capture. I also have AnyList, which is a grocery app. As I run out of things, some people sometimes like have a whiteboard or a pad on their fridge or something that they write things down. I don't, again, like, that is too slow for me. As I am using up the last of something, like let's say I need more butter, right? As I see that I'm getting low, I immediately open this up, I type in butter, and I hit enter. And the cool thing about this app that I really like here's leave-in conditioner, right? Because I just puts them in and I need some more. The cool thing about this app is that I can assign it to different stores, because I will go to different stores for different things, and there's a little filter button, and I can choose which store I am going to. So let's say I'm going to Fry's, which is Kroger for you if you live in most of the rest of the country. I will see all the stuff that I want to buy at Fry's, because they'll have certain brands or certain things I like, or I do like to shop by sales, because I like to see, okay, what do I want to make this week? What's inspiring to make with what's on sale this week, or what's in season, or whatever else. I do like to cook a lot. And then I can just go through and see what I need to buy there, and then I can turn that filter off and I can switch it over to Safeway, if I'm going there, or Walmart, or whatever else. I am kind of picky about certain brands and things I like at different stores, and I know this store has this thing, and I like the store brand over at this place and stuff, so I do run to 2 to 3 different stores once a week when I do my grocery shopping. Some people like to just stop by the store and kind of browse around and stuff, and if that's you, that's kind of cool, like on your way home from work. I know some people like to get inspired that way, like they look around, they see what looks good and all that kind of stuff. I don't have time for that. For me, achieving my goals and having all these things, like what I'm doing here with streaming, what I'm doing in the games I play, what I'm doing with the rest of my life, it's actually pretty structured. I don't want to waste time going to the store and back multiple times a week. I want to get it all out of the way in one trip, and so that means I spend time making my grocery list and planning out my meals and things like that. Not only will I look and go, okay, this is what looks good. Now, okay, I know I can make this recipe. I pull up the recipe. I go, okay, I need these ingredients. I put them all into the list. I also know if I've run out of other stuff, I was adding those things throughout the week. Then I scan and I go, okay, what stores am I going to get these on? Usually it's the same stores that I get things from, but if one's on sale, I might switch the store. Then I know, okay, on this day, I'm going to hit these 2 or 3 stores. I knock it all out. I know there's never a time when I don't have something for a recipe, right? There's never a time when I'm like out of something and like, oh shit, I forgot to pick that up at the store. Like, that doesn't exist in my world. And I'm not trying to say this like I'm just so fucking awesome. It's that I recognize how crappy my mind is at remembering stuff when I'm at the store, and so you have to outsource it to a system. You should project management software. If you don't need something that crazy, get Todoist, get a grocery list app. If it's not an app, use pen and paper. Whatever it is, stop spinning your wheels just trying to rely on your brain, because it's actually really awful at handling these things. So that has been, I'd say, the biggest practical thing I have done in my life to get my shit together. I would say it before I implemented these and really worked on making it a habit to constantly put stuff into my to-do list, to constantly get stuff on my calendar, to constantly get stuff into my grocery list and all that kind of stuff. I was kind of all over the place, right? It would be the case that I'd forget things at the store. I would buy things I didn't need. I would, and so I was spending more money than I needed to. Things were going bad more often. I was wasting time, or I'd be trying to cook something and I'd be in the middle of it and stuff would be on the stove, and then I wouldn't have what I would need to finish the recipe, right? And then that would be a real frustration for me, because like I'd want it to be as it is, and sometimes I'd be able to make a substitution, but sometimes not, or sometimes it's like I couldn't finish it, or I didn't have, if there were supposed to be maybe 3 flavors coming through, but I didn't have one of the ingredients, then only 2 came through, and it kind of fell a little bit more flat. And then I don't want to say dinner was ruined that night, but it certainly was like, this is frustrating, right? This kind of sucks. So, I could say things like, I think a gratitude practice really changed it had a massive effect on me, changing my outlook from maybe more negative to positive, and that's a big one. But if I was going to give one piece of life advice to a stranger, again, going back on a big level, really investigate and understand that forgiveness and acceptance, they're so important. I wish we taught people in school the value of this. And the thing is, that's not really what school is for. That's what religion was for. And in our increasingly secular world, we are getting away from forgiveness and acceptance, and instead we are vilifying and punishing. And I'm not saying that every religion, like every church or every whatever, got this right, because there's certainly a lot of like Southern Baptist churches that focus more on punishment rather than forgiveness. I'm not saying that. But I am saying, if you really think about, let's say the top leaders. I didn't know if I was going to get to forgiveness today, but I did get these books out. One of them is from a client of mine on forgiveness, and I'll talk about this book later on. But the other one, this one's called The Book of Joy. It's by the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu. The Dalai Lama, as you all should know, is a major figure in Tibetan Buddhism. Desmond Tutu has a giant-ass cross hanging from his neck, though. He's an archbishop. Why are these two dudes from totally different religions dancing with one another and smiling at one another on the cover and writing a book together? What does this book go into in the very beginning when we're talking about joy? Does it talk about, healthy habits day to day or anything like that? No. It was Desmond Tutu talking about when they finally, when South Africa was moving past apartheid, what were they doing to navigate that? And he was emphasizing and talking about forgiveness. And unfortunately, not that I'm really super up to date on South African politics, but it seems like they've been moving away from that and gone into the desire to vilify and reparations and get back at people, even though that's not where they started. It seems like that's kind of a modern day thing. And I think it's, in my opinion, they're going backwards because of it. And if you look at our modern world today, in our increasingly secular society, where we have moved away from some of these big ideas, we now have cancel culture. People aren't allowed to make mistakes. They must be punished. They must be canceled forever. There's no shot at redemption without them really going probably too far to apologize, to the point where they are they're not doing it the right way for them, and they're not doing it the right way for society. And I think society is worse off for it if we're really looking. So if you ask what would be one piece of life advice to give to a stranger, if you really begin to understand and go down the path of healing from bad things and understanding the power of forgiveness, compassion, empathy, it will make your life exponentially better. It will make the rest of the world exponentially better if more of us are doing this. But on a practical level, as great as like gratitude or journaling and all these things are, if you're just really struggling and you don't have your shit together, get a system where you can rely on, a reliable system that you're checking in with, that you're using regularly. You can't use it intermittently. You have to commit to it, where you are, as things come up in your head, whether it's, I got to remember to buy this at the grocery store, I got to remember to call this person, I got to remember to do this thing, I got to email this person back, I got to do whatever it is. Have a system where that you get that out of your head immediately. So for a few reasons, not just because your brain is really bad at throwing this shit out at the times you need it, because it's usually, it doesn't, and then like a few hours later you're like, oh shit, I forgot to go stop at the store, I needed to do that tonight, right? Like, how often does that happen? A lot, when you don't have a system like this. But also, if you are trying to rely on your brain to kind of manage all that kind of stuff, then you are clogging your brain up with all that kind of crap. If you get it out, you free your mind up to focus more. So it's going to practically make your life better as you move through the day as well, because you can rest. You're not, what should I be doing? What do I need to remember something? And you have like competing thoughts, and your brain is trying to like juggle and manage all this for you. No, it's like, no, I get all of that stuff out into my phone, which is then synced everywhere, and that allows me to be present with people. It allows me to be present on this 2-hour stream. It allows me to be present when I am doing something in Nexus, like hosting a Merchant Midnight Madness, right? It allows me to be present when I'm spending time with family. It allows me to be present when I'm spending time with my dog. Although, to be honest, in between throwing the ball to him, I will sometimes take out my phone and like talk on Discord to some people and stuff like that. It allows me to be more present when I'm doing my gratitude practice. By having all those thoughts out, I don't struggle as much with thoughts trying to compete and get my attention when I'm meditating. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. So, big level, forgiveness and acceptance are really, 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 really big deals that way more people need to investigate and realize the massive importance of, and how much better it's going to make their lives and the rest of the world. And on a practical micro level, stop using your brain as your to-do list. Use your calendar, use a to-do list, use these systems, and make sure there's a way that when something comes up, it is out of your brain and into that system immediately. I mean, it needs to be less than 5 seconds. Like, it takes me less than 5 seconds to grab my phone out, use my fingerprint reader on the back here to open up the screen, tap that, and start typing. Right? And it's got to be that fast. It has to be frictionless. If you have to go through a bunch of steps, the more steps you have in something, the greater chance you fail. And this is actually something that I can say applies not just to this and your own personal systems, but even in web design, we know this. Every step you add to get someone from where they are to where you want them to be, the conversion rate decreases. So that applies throughout all of life. So frictionless, whatever it is. If it's pen and paper, that's fine. If it's your phone, that's fine. But ideally, you'd have a button right there on the home screen, where as soon as you take the pad out, it's already opened up to that day's page, and you just start jotting immediately. Those would be my recommendations, I think, on the fly. Maybe I'll think of something else, but I think those are probably the two biggest things on a macro and micro level in my life that have move the ball forward the most, I'd say. Definitely other things to talk about, definitely other things I will bring up on the stream, but I feel good with those answers. So, all right. Any other questions from the crowd? I'll give you all a minute while we listen to this lo-fi. And I drink this awful pomegranate Red Bull stuff. I think it'd be a little bit better if it was cold. It's been sitting here for like 2 hours, so it warmed up. And again, if you guys have recommendations, first off, I did invite you all to join the Discord. Let's see if this works. Boom, in the chat now. You can see the link just came up. If you're watching this, click on that. It will take you into the Discord. You can join it. You can hang out with us. It's a supportive community. You can talk to me. You can throw out ideas for what you want to see on this stream going forward, questions you have, whatever. you'll notice if you join, it says please do not share anything too personal or private at the top. So like don't go into like super deep things. That's more of a private thing that you welcome to discuss with me if you want. But you can certainly discuss and share wins, just general questions about, hey, I'm trying to set up this productivity system. Does anyone have any information, or have they ever used this before? I'm thinking you can share creative expressions. I've shared some covers of me playing drums before, pet pics, food porn, whatever else. I'm thinking about making a channel in there, something like weekly or daily goals. Like maybe more weekly. Daily might be asking too much, but like maybe on Mondays, like, what do you guys want to accomplish this week? And then you can throw it out. Like, I'd like to do this week, and we can kind of check in. And are you achieving the things you want every week? You know, I don't know if I'm going to make that channel or not. We'll see. But, you know, the Discord link is also in the About on Twitch below, and I need to add it to like the YouTube videos, the recordings that I put up in YouTube. Join. That's going to give you access to me. That's going to give you access to everyone chilling and watching and kind of being part of this journey with me. Everyone in there so far is pretty cool. There was one guy I had to remove because he insulted someone enough that I just wasn't having it. So there is kind of a zero tolerance for that kind of thing. But like, really, you know, just, I don't want to be the guy who's always like and subscribe and follow and all that. Although that does help me. If you follow me on Twitch, that will really help me. Because it helps kind of get the word out, right? More and more. It helps more people find this. And so if you're getting value out of it, I'd really appreciate that. Or on YouTube, subscribe or whatever else. But I think the big thing is join the Discord and help make this community better. Join us, you know? Hopefully you'll get something out of it. But if you can, definitely tell me the things you want to see or hear on this stream. And if I can, there's some things I can't. I covered that at the top where it was like, yeah, I can't really get into like bipolar disorder or anything, but if I can talk about it, it's something that I feel competent, I will. So with that said, it's now been over 2 hours, so I think this is a good place to stop. I'm going to use my little stream deck to do the little outro, and I will see you all tomorrow at the same time, 3 p.m. Eastern. Alright? Take care, everyone.